A few weeks ago, we had this gentleman on who's a senior fellow for democracy at the government at the Center for American Progress. And I use a phrase. He's been in the cauldron. He knows what it's like to be working in an environment where the decisions that are made by leaders affect large swaths of people. And being part of the election commission and working with Ellen Weintraub, former chair Ellen Weintraub, had to definitely put him in some interesting meetings and some conversations. With us this morning again is Tom Moore, that senior fellow that I just spoke of. Good morning, Tom. Welcome back to Cheers Views.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, it's always good to see you, man. I appreciate you taking some time to chat and all. Wow, so much has happened. It's funny because, the weekend goes by and we all go on Monday, we go, okay, what happened? What are we dealing with now? But in recent weeks, some ballot initiatives have come about, and there's been a number of things that you guys at the organization have really been leaning into. Let's start off by talking about this Montana plan, ballot initiative, and what that means when it comes to voting.
Yeah, so this is an initiative that's going on the ballot in Montana this fall, and it basically just withdraws the power of corporations to spend in politics. Cases like Citizens United said you can't regulate, you can't restrict, you can't pass rules against, forbidding this kind of thing. But none of those cases ever said that you have to create corporations that have this list of powers that includes political spending power. So the Montana plan just kind of plucks that power off the list and says, all right, businesses and nonprofits and unions and everybody, you can do everything you need to do, but this is no longer something that you're set up to do. And it's moving forward. They had to gather 30,000 signatures. They gathered 50,000.
Wow.
And the Secretary of State just qualified it for the ballot the other day. There are a couple legal challenges that could happen between now and November. Nothing serious. It's wildly popular with Montana voters, as this idea is throughout the country.
What will the legal challenges be, or what do you think they might be?
Well, we're seeing this already. There's a lawsuit against a similar law that's been passed in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Basically, it's just, this violates Citizens United. You can't do it. It's like, okay, actually, honestly, we all read Citizens United before we started this, and that was kind of our starting point, and we, steered pretty clear of it. That was kind of the design from day one. So, they're basically saying like, oh, it's just a regular campaign finance restriction, and there's this kind of interesting thing that not giving something the capacity to do something, is that the same thing as banning them from doing it? Mm-hmm. It's like, it's not. I mean, it's like one is a building exercise and the other one is a restricting exercise. One is positive, one is negative, and they are very different. And one of the most clear things in American law is this part of corporate law where the Supreme Court has said this is all up to the states. They get to set the powers. As long as there are probably some outlying examples, like you only have the power to hire black people, mm-hmm. or something. Okay, that's not going to work. But as long as you're not making any kind of viewpoint-based discrimination or anything like that, the states can pretty much do what they want.
Yeah. So yesterday, and I don't know how much you want to lean into this, but you can put the brakes on when you want to. But yesterday, the Supreme Court decided to hear the case around Donald Trump's desire to use executive power as it relates to mail-in ballots with voting. And there's some back end of this that could create further challenges down the road. But give us your observation in terms of, maybe not so much your opinion, because I know that you stay away from that, but give us your observation of what this may mean. I guess the positive or the negative, the positive and the negative of this decision to take it in the first place. Because I was hoping, as many people were, that they weren't even going to hear this case.
Yeah, it is. It's not said. Basically, it was John Roberts didn't squash it, where he could have, and so basically, it's not an indication where the full court's going to go, but it was basically saying, look, this is not as such a dire emergency that we need to stop it the way it's been stopped. But this is pretty bad. They're trying to trying to require states to give them lists of voters. And then the Postal Service is saying, well, we're only going to deliver ballots that are addressed to those voters. And there's, I'm not afraid to express an opinion on this. This is one of the ways that the Trump administration has just kind of degraded all these different things in the United States government, from the Justice Department, from the State Department, to the U.S. Postal Service, which, I mean, the one thing that we all know, everybody knows, is if you drop something in the mail, the Postal Service will, no matter what the weather, no matter anything else, will deliver it.
And it might take a whole longer time than you wanted it to, but they're going to do their dead level best to get it delivered. So keep going, Tom. I'm sorry.
Absolutely. And for 200 years, that's been the case, and this is the Postal Service saying, oh, wait a minute. No, if it looks like a ballot and that name's not on our list, we're not going to accept it at all. And it's like, what are you doing? This, the Postal Service is not a gatekeeper on, what gets delivered and what doesn't get delivered.
Yeah.
So it's pretty bad. And I'm reasonably confident that the Supreme Court will see it that way. But, we'll see what states can do to get around it.
Do you think, Tom, that so they hear the case. Do you think that they will, I'm trying to figure out how I want to answer this question because there's so much that pops into my head with this, but do you think that they will, none of us knows how they might rule on it, what the numbers will be in terms of, the 9 justices, but do you think that they'll look at this and see that there's no evidence to show what Trump is trying to present that there's evidence for? Because most of the time when it comes to cases that go in front of any judge, part of the requirement is that there's evidence from the plaintiff's side or the accuser's side, depending on what type of case it is, that makes it clear. I mean, a good example is what happened with the reflecting pool. Janine Pirro said, and I don't want to drag you down the legal thing, but Janine Pirro finally realized we don't have enough evidence to even take this case to court, yet alone get it prosecuted, and yet alone get a conviction.
Yeah.
So there's no evidence with the Supreme Court when it comes to this. Sorry.
No, that's good. And one of the things that we are seeing in the system is that, like, people can say whatever they want in front of cameras, people can say whatever they want on Twitter, but you get in front of a judge and you really do have to bring the evidence. And whether it's the reflecting pool case or this at the Supreme Court, they can't just assert all this fraud with mail-in ballots, which does not exist. They're going to have to actually say, like, look, here are the facts, and there's kind of a step before that too. Like, here's our authority to set this rule, and here's why it's not arbitrary and capricious, and here's why all these different things. And it's not so much do they like mail-in balloting and so forth. It's more, does the federal government have the authority? Does the Postal Service have the authority to stop accepting mail that it doesn't like, that the president doesn't like?
That goes through the states.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's Postal Service shouldn't be making those decisions at all. They don't open your mail. They don't read your mail. So if an envelope goes out and it's got a ballot in it, the Postal Service should not care.
Right. That's the part where it becomes a privacy issue, and then I would think that the pushback, if any, is that it gets into that conversation. No.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, those are really tough statutes, right? I mean, it's forever. It's been the law that if you're a Postal Service employee who opens mail, it's like you go to prison.
It's a federal crime.
Those are serious crimes.
Yeah, it's not even that, and that's the weird part right now, because I think that what the Trump administration, they've continuously shown their hand that it is a partisan effort. There's no bipartisan conversation to this. And ironically, the states that are anteing up their information seem to be the states that are on. I don't know how to say it other than they're the red, voting states in a federal election.
Yeah, and what's kind of odd about Trump's crusade against mail-in voting? I mean, he votes by mail consistently, but also it's just like it is something that if you really kind of drill down on it, all of these things that they're trying with the SAVE Act, all of these things would quite possibly hurt Republican turnout more than it would hurt Democratic turnout. And I think the kind of lefty-leaning democracy groups who, are actually being very they don't care. They're just like, no, these restrictions are bad. Like we don't care who it hurts more, Republicans or Democrats. It hurts America,
Right.
and we're going to fight against this. But it is interesting that if of all this stuff happened that they want to do, it would probably depress Republican turnout more than it would Democratic turnout.
Well, and that's I think about this in terms of, I was talking about our neighbors and this whole situation with Canada and the tariffs and all, but I was thinking about, I mean, I don't know what all of my neighbors do in terms of their voting up and down my street. I have an assumption, but I don't know. But if in Illinois, in Chicago, they vote red or blue, that's not something. If they vote red or blue and they vote by mail, it hurts everybody on the street, based on just looking at the math and not the who's checking somebody else's mail. It's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. So Tom, you've got you talked about Hawaii. You mentioned Hawaii in relationship to the question about Montana. Re-enlighten everybody about what's happening in Hawaii when it comes to Citizens United and corporate money being thrown into political elections.
Yeah. So the folks in Hawaii saw what was happening in Montana. They've been working on this ballot initiative for about 2 years. Jeff Mangan and his group, the Transparent Election Initiative, just been like working night and day. They saw what was happening in Montana and said, "Oh, we should do that." Introduced a bill. There were like 6 bills floating around for a while. They settled down on one, and it kind of made its way through the system and caught on fire at a certain point. And this was right before we spoke in June.
Right.
Made it all the way through. Governor Josh Green signed it into law in May. And it's going to take effect next July, so July
of 2027. Okay,
which means that the legislature gets one more shot at it next spring to maybe change it up a little bit. We'll see, but it is the law in Hawaii, and it's going to be implemented in the middle of next year. There were a bunch of other states where bills were introduced, and it's weird. We're still finding states where bills were introduced because they didn't call us up and tell us. They just copied off of Hawaii or copied off of Montana and introduced their own. We're like, oh, that's great. Thanks. But I expect next spring, we're going to have bills in at least 30 states that would do this. Yeah. So it is for something that
30 states.
Yeah.
3-0.
3-0. And this is for an initiative that the Center for American Progress just announced last September. I mean, this is brand spanking new. But I think what that indicates is like there's this hunger for something to actually do something about our situation. People hate our politics, and to the extent that this could really shift things, I think people are very, very hungry for that.
One of the things that I'm asked often by listeners, and we'll talk about that. I'll say this. We'll take a break and come back and talk about it. Is the Electoral College, and you guys have come up with not necessarily a fix for that per se, as well as a fix for Citizens United, but kind of the workaround, but especially with Citizens United, and that's something I really want to have our listeners hear a little bit from you on when we come back. But let's take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chu. Keep it locked in. I'll be right back with more of Chu's Views and Tom Moore. We'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back to Chu's Views. Thanks for being with us this morning. If you're just tuning in, I'm Richard Chu, and with us this morning is one of the leading voices, Senior Fellow for Democracy and Government at the Centers for American Progress, Tom Moore. Tom, before we went to the break, kind of left you with this thought about two things, Electoral College and Citizens United. But let's first talk about Citizens United and the work that you guys are doing in terms of, I call it the workaround, and maybe that's not the best wording to use, but explain to our listeners a little bit more about the work that you're doing there and how you've put together this corporate power reset and what that means for the U.S. Because so many people are saying, we got to get rid of Citizens United. Your belief is there's a different way to approach getting us back on track or moving in a better direction.
Yeah. So to get rid of Citizens United, we would either have to do a constitutional amendment to the federal Constitution or get a new Supreme Court, a lot of new members of the Supreme Court to overturn Citizens United. Neither one of this is going to happen most likely. I mean, a lot of good folks are working on constitutional amendments, but that is a tough road, and that is decades to get that done, if at all.
And would also require there'd have to be standing by a particular group that could take that as a case. Would we be able to skip through the federal court system, or how would that work?
Yeah, so to do a federal constitutional amendment, there's two different ways to do it. The one that we've done every time so far is basically 2/3 of each House of Congress votes on this resolution, and then sends it out to the states, and 3/4 of the states have to approve it. Usually, they've been putting time limits on it, so it's like within 7 years or something like that. That's a really high bar.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is 3/4 of the states is a gigantic number of states. We haven't even hit the first part of it yet. We haven't even gotten it out to the states yet. We don't have a constitutional amendment that will pass 2/3 of the Senate and 2/3 of the House. So that's kind of, people are working hard on it, but that's still in step one.
Right.
And in the last 10 years, or since Citizens United was decided, that the court has only gone even further in that direction. And what was a 5-4 decision then would probably be a 6-3 decision today.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not the way to go. And the decisions that the court has made since then, since Citizens United in 2010, is like anytime you try to do a regulation, we're going to look at it as hard as possible, and we're probably going to strike it.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to, if there's something out there that has the authority to do it, and you're saying no, we're going to regulate that, then we're going to come down as hard on that as we can. Which is why we went to this different approach. It's kind of a workaround, kind of a what we like to say is that it makes Citizens United irrelevant.
Got it.
And the idea is, okay, we're not going to go with regulations. Set all that aside. We're not going to go to campaign finance law at all. Set all that aside. We are going to go to the corporation law statute, the thing that actually creates corporations in this state. And what every state's law says, more or less, is that we create corporations. We can change them up at any time. Everybody's got the power to do anything a human being can do. No out-of-state corporation can do anything in the state that a domestic corporation can't do. Those things together are the ingredients of this. And basically, all the states have been giving out this power to all the corporations for the last 100 years, but they don't have to. They were competing with each other.
Mm-hmm.
They were in the early 20th century. They're all competing with each other. New Jersey kind of jumped out ahead and gave everybody everything. And then all the other states were like, oh, all right, fine. Matched it. And then Delaware drank their milkshake. All the big companies are incorporated in Delaware.
Right.
And then everybody just stuck with it. And just like, okay, well, everybody's got all the powers. They can do whatever they want everywhere. We're allowing Montana allows a Delaware corporation to do whatever it wants in Montana. Okay, fine. We're all agreed on all this. And that's what it's been for the last 100 years, but it doesn't have to be that way. And what Montana is doing, what Hawaii has done, and what 30 other states will consider doing next year is just to say, like, hey, we create you, we define you, you're out there messing up our elections, and we're going to stop you from doing that because we're in charge. And it's a very different way of thinking about corporations than we've been thinking about them, like for you and I, our whole lives. But that really is how it goes. Like at the end of the day, the people in each state are in charge of what corporations do in their state, what they are in their state.
Yeah, and that gives so much more power. I hate to say power to the people, but it literally does give power, because that then starts, if I get this right in terms of the through line, that starts with the state legislature or legislators and the legislature having the ability to then define what's inside of the documents required to define a corporation. Am I going in the right direction on this?
Yeah, it's not the charter itself, it's the law behind the charter.
Right.
It's like here's the menu of things that we'll give you if you want to be a corporation. We can set the items on that menu.
Mm-hmm. And then that by having the right people elected to office gives the voters the power to say, this is how do you stand, or where do you stand, ma'am or sir, on how corporations should be determined.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. So in many ways that can become a ballot initiative as well, in terms of local groups determining this is what it should look like and what they should be allowed to do or not do. And that if it's a ballot initiative, potentially that gives the voters a little bit more of a say in what's inside of the law. Am I reaching on that or no?
Yeah, no. And in 23 states in D.C., voters can do this. Illinois is one of those states, but actually the restrictions on ballot issues are really pretty severe.
Right. Yeah, we know.
It can only be I think it can only be it can only be a constitutional amendment, I think, and it's very limited what the topics are. So in Illinois, if you were to do this, it would be most likely the legislature, and it would probably most likely be a legislature that was frightened by people running against them who said, I'm going to vote for this, and this guy won't.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes.
Good point. Good analysis. I get asked this question a lot, and I want to get your thoughts on this. And it has to do with where we are with the Electoral College. And I know that indirectly you touch on this in terms of the things that you guys review, but because it is part of democracy, it's part of our government, it's part of how we function for all this time. I've said that the way to change that is we have to change some other things first leading up to that, i.e. we've got to have we have to have, or there has to be the will of Congress to get involved in the first place. And if it doesn't start there and if there isn't enough energy there, right, left, or in the middle, it's not going to happen that we, quote, get rid of the Electoral College. But give us your thoughts there. I know that's a complicated one, but I knew that I was going to ask you this question this morning.
No, it's good. I've got to have my coffee before you go. Yeah. So the Electoral College is the way we elect the president, and there's 538 votes among the states in D.C., and whoever gets 270 of them after a presidential election wins. Doesn't always mean that the person who got the most votes wins. Hillary Clinton got more votes than Donald Trump did in 2016, but the way they were distributed, he got more Electoral College votes. It is not a great way to do it. And actually, the origins of it are pretty ugly. It was, buying off slave states when we were getting the Constitution written, and there's not a lot of good policy reasons for it. To change it, again, would take a constitutional amendment. Two-thirds of the members of Congress, and then 3/4 of the states, which would mean you've got more than 1/4 of the states who like what they're doing just fine right now. So I know that's going to be a hard one to pass as a constitutional amendment. One thing that has come forward, though, is called this National Popular Vote Compact.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing about the way the Electoral College works is it's up to the states to determine how they actually cough up these votes. So I'm going to get this right. I think it's Nebraska. They actually say, like, look, we're not going to just do winner take all. Like right now, like in California, if you win the presidential election by one vote, you get all of the electoral votes of that state.
Right.
I think it's Maine and Nebraska that actually say, like, no, you've got to win the congressional district and this and that. Well, and they kind of split it up a little bit so you can actually pick off a couple in there. But if a state wanted to say, like, we're going to flip a coin and give it to whoever wins the coin toss, that is constitutional.
Mm-hmm.
Your voters would probably not like that very much, but it is constitutional. So the state can set whatever rule it wants to determine who gets how its Electoral College votes are going to be cast. So this National Popular Vote Compact says, like, all right, how about this? Why don't you pass a kind of a law that will trigger when enough states altogether do it and say, like, look, whoever wins the popular vote in the presidential election, we're going to cast all of our Electoral College votes for that person. And that would, the Electoral College would still be sitting in the Constitution.
Right.
No one has amended it. Congress, who isn't going to do anything, hasn't done anything. But it is a way around it because basically the rules for how those Electoral College voters are set has changed. And I've always admired that idea because it's like, all right, how do you get it done when you can't get it done directly? And
workarounds have their place, I guess you could say, or not.
They do.
Taking the beast on head on is sometimes a way to go. Fascinating as always, Tom. As we wrap up real quickly, how can folks find you? How can they follow you and get involved real quickly?
I'm at Center for American Progress. We're at americanprogress.org. All kinds of good reports there, including some the president doesn't want you to read. And we're just doing our research and putting the facts out there and trying to help democracy every way we can.
Absolutely. Tom Moore, thanks for being with us again. It's always, a pleasure to have you on and get that professorial knowledge coming to us when we have you on the show. So thanks for hanging out with us this morning. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Take
All
care.
right. Take care. Bye now.